and paying attention is probably, if we moved, into this, even in this further into this warfare thing, I think it's the most, if you're paying attention to the voices, if you're paying attention to, what's going on, and you start practicing these skills, if you can put your phone away, if you can set the tone for the conversation you're about to have.
Yes.
I think you have way bigger chance of being helpful, encouraging, and loving than if you're not paying attention.
It's interesting. I never really thought about it this way before, but even that little phrase, pay attention, that to me, that means there's a cost associated. You're paying.
Yeah, it's good.
For that level of attention. You've got to put some things aside, put some things down, and really hone in.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson and SJ Jennings hanging out, exploring the kingdom, and coming to the end of a series. How many, Andy? 5? This 5-part series on listening? It's 5.
4 or 5? I don't know.
5, I think. This is the 5th. This is the final. So coming on not only the final episode of the listening series, but also, bro, the final episode of the season.
Season 4, yeah.
Season 4, yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing this since 2018, and like we were talking about before we started, I think the first season lasted 3 years, just because we didn't know that you should have seasons.
Weren't you kind of the producer guy, director?
Oh, yeah, I did it all back then.
I mean,
yeah, man.
When did we go video?
I had the laptop in front of me.
We go video in like 3 years ago? Is that when we started?
A couple of years ago, yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I think it was 3.
Might have been.
When we started, audio and
Caleb
video.
was the big proponent of going video. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And Serena
she was in on that for
produced,
a while.
The several episodes for a few years. We would send those off to our friend out
we should
on the
probably
West Coast.
We could talk about getting upgraded microphones. These are the original ones. They're not bad, but
No,
they're
not. And I know when we do some of the other productions,
I've bought a car since I bought these. Like I have a car that's newer than these are.
Yeah.
So
vintage. We're now
they're vintage.
We're now going vintage. Right. I'm afraid to touch mine, honestly. It's been
all that elastic's getting worn out,
man, and you got somebody put a rubber band on it somewhere over here. I think you did at one point.
Maybe.
Or you can the way it's kind of
duct
wired.
tape and baling wire.
And this thing, good luck.
Touch it.
Unlocking that. No touchy. Right?
Yeah, you need a pair of vice grips for that.
So man.
But
anyway. It's been a great season, and we're excited to bring this final approach to listening, and to not review the last 4 would be a little bit missional for me, and yet I feel like we're gonna in this episode we're gonna revisit some things that we've already talked about, but try to just dig a little deeper in those things. And I would get back up here before we take a break and just ask the question, what are we listening for? Mm-hmm. There's a couple double, maybe triple meaning in that question, but take a swing. I've got a couple thoughts, but what are we listening for?
Connection.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
How would you answer?
As a connection's a great answer. I was thinking
because it answers both forms of the question. I think.
Yeah. I think it's one of the most loving things we can do.
Yeah.
And if it's one of the most loving things we can do, it connects. It makes connections. So I think it's similar answer in both ways. Yeah, I know we both have had stories that we've told of recent years and being recent scenes and people that we're with. And we were talking in the last episode about, asking questions and stuff. And it's really interesting how it's made us very, very sensitive to a situation that we might have been in for an hour or a weekend when nobody asked us a single question.
Yep.
Even
though we're modeling it most of the time,
practicing it, modeling it, offering it.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been a way that I can deflect from any attention or any direction coming at me.
Right.
If and that's not always good, but I can keep the conversation, about somebody by asking questions and another question and clarifying questions and empathy and engagement. Because the more you do this with somebody, the more they're going to talk, and the more they feel listened to, and that connection feels like something. And so, and yet it's not just because you maybe model it, SJ, doesn't mean they're going to pick up on, hey, that's maybe the way I should.
He's asked me 17 questions. Maybe I should ask him one, Yeah, it doesn't usually happen that way.
Not often. And
I've even thrown in there like, well, if you were to ask me how I'm doing,
what I thought. Yeah. That's a sneaky way to hijack or guide the conversation. Like, can I take a turn? How about I take a turn?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we all kind of want to take a turn.
Right. And I think not to put undue pressure on the one speaking or that you're listening to, but yeah, that if your conversation is that one-sided that often, there may be other reasons why people have a hard time listening to you or agreeing to meet with you. Again, that sounds a little bit accusatory or confronting, but yeah, it's a tricky thing to be a good listener as well as being listened to, and who you go to for that. Last thing I would say, I was debating whether to say this, but I'm going to say it real quick before the break. When we get approached to meet or get together or to talk, or even when I'm a guest sometimes somewhere, I'm still amazed that people tend to more want to talk and kind of unload or share than they might be wanting to ask questions. When we're speaking, it's really interesting, to get pulled aside and, maybe some encouragement, compliments, but typically, it's to give some special attention to somebody who
Have you ever researched that in the Greek, or have you?
You said one thing that I really that really bothered me, or said one thing that really made. Do you have a few minutes? And so back to timing and stuff like that. It's just a very, very. I guess what I'm trying to say is we wrap this up.
Yeah.
There's an art to this. It's just not 1, 2, 3s. There's so many variables going on with people's emotions, people's time, where they are when they enter into a space of listening, what they just came from. There's things that can really. I got knocked around the other day, somehow twisted my knee, and I just told Robin the other night. I said, "Okay, just so you know, it's grumpy me. Grumpy me's here. I'm kind of here now." And I will be, just to kind of say, I'm not in the best. I am in pain. My knee is maybe tore something, but I am not doing great. So the fact that I have ice on it and it may not be the best time to share a story, but
Right.
I'll try to rise to the occasion if empathy and things like that are needed. So there's a lot of situational awareness.
Oh my gosh, man.
That's needed. And I
Yeah.
think most people don't have much.
No.
of that.
It's just similar story just last week. So, in my story, I had traumatic experiences at the dentist when I was a little kid. Like, and it ruined the dentist. It was this, like, I don't want to go.
Of course.
I gotta go. I know it's healthy and cleaning and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go. And I always get like wrought up. Well, I have a great dentist now, and that kind of has been alleviated a lot. But for whatever reason, I had to go for a cleaning last week. I was like 3 days before, I was like, man, they're going to find, I got to have this yanked out and I got to have that done. And this is going to need a crown and I need a root canal and blah, all these scenarios are going in my head. And Sherry's trying to talk to me about some things during those 3 days. And I'm just thoroughly distracted, and like like knucklehead, you know this stuff. I waited until after I went to the dentist, at which I had to get a filling, by the way, unexpectedly. I had a little bit crack in a filling. Anyway, totally distracted from her trying to engage with me in this and that. And I didn't share that with her.
Right.
So kudos to you for saying, hey, not only am I a little off on my basketball game, might be a little off on my listening
in my
game.
world.
Yeah.
Because
it's not just the injury either, for us now. It's
I'm
like
thinking MRIs. I'm thinking
the cost of all that. I mean,
a lot of things are
yeah.
Coming at us in ways of distracting. And so I want to get into the warfare part of this a little bit, into the spiritual spaces.
Who are we listening to?
Yeah, exactly. And and knowing there's a few voices in the room. And we ended the last episode saying just the power of naming, just that.
Yeah.
What does that look like? So we'll go there too. So hey, we'll be right back after this break on the Exploring More podcast. It's good for you. It builds confidence, a strong heart, and a sense of belonging. And of course, brotherhood. I'm talking about allies. At Zoe, we believe that no man should go it alone. So we've created 2 national Zoom groups for men. The West and the East Circles. They kick off again this fall, and you're invited. So get signed up, pick up your copy of The Heart of a Warrior, and join us for a strength-building journey. Got allies? I hope so.
To sign up for the East-West Heart of a Warrior book study, see the podcast show notes.
Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, where we are setting records. I think that was either the longest or second longest before we took a break. I don't know. I have to give it.
I like to keep it a mystery. Let's just keep moving it around.
They don't know when we're, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we might break 30 seconds in. It might be 10 minutes.
Yeah. Or we might take a second break. Hey, we'll be right back on the Exploring podcast.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. So let's talk about naming a little bit, and then I want to get into some of the deeper spiritual realities of warfare that's associated with this.
Right. So I'm very aware. Before you jump in, I'm going to jump first. Very aware, like you were before the break, you shared the story about your knee.
Yeah.
And I kind of climbed in there with my dentist story, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I did that was to bring it back to you, because I talked about being distracted and not listening well and all these things that are going on in my head that I had not communicated to my wife until after I went and had my visit with the dentist.
Versus me preemptively.
To bring it back to you to ask you the question, was there all of that in the knee thing for you as well? So in the context of naming, right, and helping people to
good idea.
There's ways to do these things. It's really not super black and white. Yes, there are some things you should not do.
Right.
Like, you know what you ought to do, just don't do that. Like, don't say stuff like that. At least this, at least that, don't say those things. But it doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So
Right.
me talking about my journey of, dentistry in the last week and a half, ultimately my goal was to bring it back to you and maybe help you see
Yeah, it's a great point.
that there was more to it than just ice pack on the knee.
Right. Yeah. And the context of what we're doing is a conversation on Exploring More podcast about life, listening, circumstances that are real. So I don't think there was any penalty flag on. But,
No.
But if the context was, hey, can I tell you something that happened the other day that
Mm-hmm.
was really, it's really hard because I'm getting older. Tweaked my knee. Spent most of the time walking around the house, actually not walking around on with ice. Even told Robin that, hey man, it's grumpy me's here. I'm just telling you, I'm struggling. That's just a different conversation
Mm-hmm.
of which you would say, well, tell me some more about
What's underneath all that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know,
So reading the room, reading the moment,
Sure.
reading the severity, the weight, all of that stuff is what we're saying, man, that separates
mm-hmm.
the men from the boys, the women from the girls when it comes to this skill, the art of listening. And this naming thing that you brought up. Were we done with my knee?
No, I think we're going to keep talking about your knee because I don't think you're done talking about your knee. But I think, but I think it's to your point. Naming things. I think there's a real truth to the idea that you can become really adept as a listener in helping people name the importance of things. So, like we left the last episode, the guy who was talking about abusive trauma he experienced, and he kept saying, like, but I had a good childhood. I had a really good childhood. And my parents were good people. But, they threw me down the stairs. But,
I know what we're talking about now.
but,
Exactly.
but they were good people, and I had a pretty good childhood. Like, no. We have to stop and stand in your name and stand in representation of however old you were, and that was wrong.
Yeah. So there's two things about naming. One is you can actually come in agreement with somebody
Mm-hmm.
in
Affirm.
what they're saying, and you're affirming. Mm-hmm. Yes, good word.
That it mattered. Right.
That oh my gosh, of course you were scared.
Right.
Because that the person just said, and I was so scared.
Right.
Well, of course you
were. Why wouldn't you be?
You're 8 and
yeah,
somebody's knocking on the door and your parents. I mean, of course you are.
Right.
Go on. What happened next? Or the naming can be like you're suggesting with this friend of ours. Like you kind of have a timeout. Like wait, timeout. You keep saying this and this. Those aren't really reconcilable. I just want you to hear me. I'm trying to understand how they're really good people and this happened. What I see is that's not good. Mm-hmm. And I get it. None of us want to throw our parents under the bus.
Right.
But I just want to name that what happened to you was not good. Okay. Maybe it was bad. That's bad. That's bad behavior.
Terrible. Yeah.
So naming, has its
Mm-hmm.
place in a variety of ways. And I think to help somebody who for some reason is unwilling to go to a harder place. And in that case where we were with our friend, it changed everything.
Oh my gosh. And much of it was he had been trained to see it that way.
Right.
But yes.
Because lots of things have happened in his household growing up. And they were, if it's okay if it doesn't kill you kind of thing. And yet there was stuff that was killing him, in terms of what he experienced. So I think that's a part of naming, to be able to just bring a little phrase or agreement or clarity, right? The ability to bring a phrase of, well, okay, great example of just stories we just shared. A sample of naming would be, well, yeah, SJ, I mean, if I think you told me that story once before about having so many teeth pulled and driving home in the station wagon, with just mouthful
bleeding
gone.
out on the
so
bench seat.
Of course, it would be, and I got to book another one of these. You would feel some level of apprehension, if not, even as a 50-something-year-old man. Of course, that makes sense.
Yeah. What are things that are worthy of naming?
Yeah.
Because I think
all trauma.
Yeah.
All trauma, all wounding. It's a way of engaging, listening that lets that person know what you just told me. I heard you. Of course, that should never happen to anybody. Yeah, and I think naming is not. It's just that it's somehow coming into a level of acknowledgement and maybe agreement versus, well, that was the country was going through a hard time, and they'd all come back from war. I mean, that's not naming.
Right.
That is a reality of the culture and the time, but that's not naming.
Right.
Naming something else that was going on or naming some reason as to why. Well, no, you probably, yeah. I mean, you said you were out at 2 a.m. That's not good. That's not naming.
Right.
So, coming into agreements with components
That's
of
blaming, actually.
That's
yes.
right. What were you doing?
Right.
I mean, the implied things that
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah. So I think that's when I think of naming, it either can be with our friend. I don't know. It's a fine line. It wasn't corrective.
No.
It was inviting.
Do you see this?
It was inviting him to see something that, that's not a healthy, interaction from parents. And you've shared some other stories, and you've said that a few times. I just want you to. It's okay.
Do you know you're doing that?
I think it's
right.
I think it's okay, actually appropriate to name that. That's abusive. And I'm not trying to throw your parents under the bus, just like you're not. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But so those are just some of the things I think that can clarify the naming.
Yeah. I want to add one more, I think, to naming that something happened to you and is one thing. Naming that something should have happened for you and didn't is another one.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Say it one more time.
Something that should have happened for you and did not. Naming that is often just as important as naming the things that happened to you.
Yeah.
Right. So when I think about naming, and we use this word a lot, so it just lends itself to the nuance of it. It's validation. We talk about validation, they're over there behind you, we give a sword, I see you,
gift,
you
ceremony,
have what it takes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different kind of gifts of validation. Absolutely.
Yeah. But the validation of, what you went through was hard. It was traumatic. It shouldn't have happened.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry it happened. Yeah. That's a powerful engagement. And yeah, I think of some of the counselors I've had and the questions back to, they're listening, paying them to listen and they're listening. As if they're with you for any time, they start to hopefully collect data points and information. But I'll never forget this one counselor who he's the first guy I'm going to call when I'm going to, continue to move towards getting eyes on my life, my story. And even in the naming, as he gets past, Michael, that's brutal. That's a hard story. It's one I know I've said this to some guys. That's one of the harder stories I've ever heard. And they're like, really? And then there's the question. That's when I think somebody skilled at listening can ask the right question at the right time. Like, bro, what do you wish would have happened? Or how would you have liked them to have responded?
Yeah.
And inviting, the emotion and even that imagination to engage. And then I can remember him on a few occasions saying, of course that's how you would want to feel. Of course that's the way that it should be.
Yeah, that's reintegration is what you just described.
Yep.
Like,
well, that's where naming goes.
Of course it does.
That's the gift of it.
Yeah.
That's exactly
absolutely. That's the logical progression, right?
Yeah.
And that we're hopeful for. That's a good one, man. Yeah. So before we move off of validation, I don't want to give the impression that all we're doing is living in a place of sympathy, empathy, and oh my gosh, that was so hard.
Yeah.
Like, there comes a time when it's appropriate to say, okay, we've talked about this many, many times.
Yeah.
You've shared
like
very
where you're
hard
going.
Things with me, in this subject.
This relationship, typically.
How do you transition into, we don't want to be the advice giver, you know what you ought to do.
Right.
Especially not too soon. But I think the transition can come with a question, right? Because it's not just we don't want to stay in the hole that we met them in. Hopefully climb down in, like the Brene Brown little video, we climbed down in there with them.
Yeah. We
got in touch with something in ourselves so we could relate to them. At some point, you got to climb back up out of that hole. And so if I'm going too soon, let me know. But how do you make that transition and do it kindly?
Yeah, I like what you said earlier about, I think a gentle question is going to be the thing that, all right, we're here, we're in the hole, we're in the pit. And that question of, hey, can you've shared that, you've affirmed that, different things that maybe named it, how hard that was. But then I think the question of, I think I see something, a pattern here, and maybe you do too. But
would you like to explore?
Yeah. Could we? Yeah, because then depending on your relationship, again, it's not always black and white. But is it appropriate to offer a solution or a perspective of, I've heard this from where you have sat and experienced it. Would you come here and here's a brilliant question, I think. What would you say to you?
Right. Let's get up on the observation
start to
deck.
Turn into some kind of.
How would you coach you if you were watching?
Because people are
play on the field?
Amazingly wise in life and life skills. Most have accumulated levels of wisdom that there's no way they'd let somebody treat their daughter, their son like that, or they might be the Samaritan that come like, let's go, let's get out of that situation. So I think inviting somebody to disassociate with that for a few moments and say, if I brought you what you just brought me as a story problem, what would you tell? What would you want that person to know? And start to move gently towards solutions.
Right.
Or remedy, good word. Or some kind of different, what's the insanity definition, right?
Right. Same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I think then you can start to move, if you've earned that right through listening, to this idea of something different, something better, call it a solution. And even, Robin and I uncovered so much codependency in our lives through this process.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't had some of the counsel and questions and the opportunity to see that, wait, this is something in me, not just what other people are doing. This is a good spiritual warfare turn now, by the way.
Let's do it.
Let's turn. This is something in me that there seems to be a line of people in my story that are doing this to me. And
I am the common denominator.
And I'm the common denominator. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we started to be, we're okay if each other's okay. And we would never get past some of the shallow waters of conversation and into deeper challenges and feelings and patterns that we were stuck in. And some of it can be your family of origin. That's how she learned to roll. And we all have certain codependency characteristics. And even as little ones, we come to see, all right, the world works this way. If I do this, this happens. If I don't do that, this happens. And so we start putting our methodology, theology, even our belief system together. And I may not get mom or dad's approval when I do this, even high achievers, it's, well, what about the B or how come they're not A? I mean, you can get really, really hurt in that. But so it's not that you didn't just get validated. That's one way to come at this. I think the other one is, no, what do I need to do to not get hurt? It's not just what I need to do to get validation. What do I need to do to not get hurt? And those are the ways that start to create some of this false self, self-protective or self-promoting ways that, of course, when you're little, you're trying to figure out how to navigate this stuff. But the thing is that goes on from 8, 9, 10 11-year-olds to 22, to 32, to 45.
Well, I would say it gets cemented
and goes down the aisle with you in a marriage. And now you got two people's constructs, starting to work. And I'm going to tie this all back to listening. And so, of course, you're listening how you were listened to, and now you're in this deepest of relationships called marriage, and then parenting, and these skills show up that you really don't want. Right. But can't not show up.
Yeah, learned skills are not always a positive thing. Yeah.
And I think the warfare that goes along with them is the legacy program that the Kingdom of Darkness runs.
Right.
Was just writing about this in the 30-day devotional that's coming out on YouVersion next month, about they want your legacy, and they've been working on the family farm, in the family tree,
yours and hers,
and grandparents and great grandparents, and how some of this warfare that works. I mean, I can't tell you how many people. It's extraordinary. One of our good friends, he and his brother, estranged, went for a long period of time not talking. Come to find out that their dad, right, and these are 40 and 50-year-olds at the time, they're older now, but their dad didn't talk to their brother.
Yep.
They got estranged, had a very aggressive relationship, and it just, not just estranged, like done
and
with
write you off.
Their dad had that with their brother, 3 generations.
Wow.
And I think we see that in multiple family trees, in multiple what's the website? Ancestry. Yeah. When you start looking at some of that stuff, it is fascinating.
It is.
But it also is fascinating from a warfare standpoint of how does this how do these styles of relating
Mm-hmm.
or lack
Mm-hmm.
of ability to relate, how do they keep finding their way into our, oh, well, we're just German, or we're
Yeah.
we're just Italian.
Right.
That's
We're just hot-blooded.
right.
Yeah.
Some
right.
things,
Might be deeper than that.
maybe.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
echoes through generations. Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple different references, to blessing through generations and cursing through generations throughout the Bible. And it's a real thing, man. And if you can get to a place where you start to see it, I think it's the desire of every man, every woman too, to create a world and provide for your children in a way that is, whatever better means. In our generations, it was, well, they have a better job, a bigger house, a nicer car, or whatever,
Right.
But what really matters is, can we deal with some of these things, understand who we've been listening to, and help them break free from some of the same patterns and cycles.
Yeah.
That's like you've used this analogy before, graduating from the 8 crayons in a box that you have when you're in kindergarten.
Jumbos, big
Yeah,
ones.
man. And then you go to like 32, 64. You got that one that's got the built-in sharpener.
128.
Yeah, man.
There's 128. What?
And there's, I didn't know there were 17 shades of blue.
Mm-hmm.
I thought blue was blue.
Right.
But as you
Primary colors, and then you move into all the other spectrum,
black and white. But yeah, man, it's really important and to not underestimate all the voices that are being spoken in our heads, and where are those voices coming from? Because if you think, we've said this a million times, if we've said it once on this podcast, if you think the only voice in your head is your own, you're kidding yourself.
Right. Yeah. The how we have explained it is, back to these voices. I can be listening, but, also is this voice of judgment, maybe a voice of criticism. It kind of comes from the stands, but they're
usually
close.
Like, you suck.
They're kind of courtside,
right? Yeah.
And so, to be a discerning, to have a discerning heart and to be a discerning person is to be able to navigate through some of those things. We were talking about this morning, and I was a little frustrated about something, and I was talking to you just on the way in today, and
yeah, your energy was up.
My energy was up, and I said something like, "It was so funny, bro. You were right, and it was discerning." I said, like, what a dummy. I mean, they're just dummies, and you're like, well. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah.
Well,
they just do dumb things.
They're not dummies. That was your warfare correction. Like, let's not put that on them,
right? And
let's not put that boomerang in the universe of judgment from me on them.
Yeah.
That I'm actually classifying, some friend of ours as a dummy.
Mm.
Now anybody who might think we're
they're
talking about him, that's
Were
really
they talking
funny.
about me?
That's really funny. But at the same time, it was, of course, no. I don't want to curse them with that label.
Oh yeah.
Because it comes back. It's sowing and reaping.
Yeah.
And so I don't want that coming, and it probably won't come back from them, even though I was speaking it about that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come from somewhere, somehow. It's going to be in the universe.
It's out there, and it's going to get on. It's going to get on somebody
for the enemy, and the enemy to use it against me, because I gave it to him. And so that's what we're talking about, the power of blessing and cursing and the tongue and the passages on listening. It's just so fun to look at the different ways in which we can be encouraging, loving, helpful, and the ways that we can't, so to bear one another's burdens, to listen and care for each other. I think that is, those are skills worth having.
Mm.
And I think in this whole series, we've talked about it many, many times now. they weren't skills that were fostered or passed down or modeled for us very well. So they're going to need to be developed. And paying attention is probably, if we moved, into this, even in this further into this warfare thing, I think it's the most, if you're paying attention to the voices, if you're paying attention to, what's going on, and you start practicing these skills, if you can put your phone away, if you can set the tone for the conversation you're about to have.
Yes.
I think you have way bigger chance of being helpful, encouraging, and loving than if you're not paying attention.
It's interesting. I never really thought about it this way before, but even that little phrase, pay attention, that to me, that means there's a cost associated. You're paying.
Yeah, it's good.
For that level of attention. You've got to put some things aside, put some things down, and really hone in. So as we land this episode, land this series, land this season, okay, let's talk about hearing from God.
Yeah.
Let's talk, because I bet, some people are like, you've been talking about listening. You haven't talked much about hearing from God. Well, we have a whole series
I was going to say
about it.
The whole podcast.
Yeah. But maybe however you want to go, man, whether it's a moment where, that you heard from him. How do you discern that? We've talked about what's in the way. I want to recommend, if you're like, I can't hear God, I've never heard God, I want to encourage you to check that series out. But I think it's important to land with that, because it's the root of it all. Like he's the one that gives us the ability, I've heard, you've heard it, puts a super on our natural. It's a supernatural ability to listen, discern, be caring, be empathetic, be validating. All of that comes from God. So
So
where do you want to go?
I was listening. Okay.
Were you?
No, I really was. I thought you were going to throw a question in there, because it's all of it's true. Everything you're sharing is true.
Right.
And so the question.
Yeah, the question would be, what is that? How has that felt like for you?
Okay.
Because you're you went to seminary, you went to you got your counseling degree, all of that stuff. So you are read up on all this stuff.
Read up, right? Maybe.
Yeah. So you have all this knowledge, but pairing that knowledge of what the Word of God says with now this knowledge of how to listen and how to be heard.
Yeah.
Because that's both sides of this coin. What does that look like in discerning the voice of God in the midst of just life?
Yeah. Great question. I think like we're alluding to, there's a progression of this. There is initially for me, we talk about it in the series, but initially for me, there were some things in the way of me hearing God, of me being able to listen. They were fundamental things like God's mad, I'm not good enough, certain deeper kind of theological beliefs,
agreements
that I had and held, and that kind of had a hold of me when it came to listening to God, hearing God's voice, and discernment, like you're talking about. So those were things wildly, SJ, that I felt like God actually showed me were in the way. I've told the story many times. Why won't you talk to me? Why won't you speak to me? And the next thought I had was, you don't believe that I do. And I can't explain it other than I can tell you that story again, that I believed that this worked somehow. There was a way that this worked. I also believed that he was still speaking. It wasn't just the Bible and it's over. So I had a few boxes checked, but I had some deeper boxes, I think, down in the cellar, in the hole that was dug in the cellar, of I wasn't good enough and he was mad. Those were two things that I feel like God revealed to me when I was asking to be in a conversational relationship. You said intimacy earlier with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took care of those basically by saying, oh, here's the boxes. I don't want them.
Yeah, I don't remember signing for these.
They're not representative of anything I want to keep,
Mm-hmm.
memorabilia of any kind. So, and that was some theology I learned growing up. I mean, that was just some of the church style that we were exposed to. And so getting that out of me or off of me and getting that away, that was huge, I think. And then inviting the Trinity, Jesus, the Father, Holy Spirit, to speak. I think that was the beginning of, and asking them questions. So we're back to asking questions and listening.
Right.
I was shown some ways to engage with God, get away, get some time, and ask a few important questions like, what do you see when you see me? How do you think of me? And kind of sit in the quiet of that. Maybe have a pen and a journal.
Yeah.
Just thinking, well, if he says something, I might want to write it down. But what happened was I was given some pictures, characters.
Mm.
And that's happened to me on a few occasions. That figure of Aragorn, Lord of the Rings, I remember asking God how he saw me, and that was a picture that came to mind. And I thought it was a distraction. I literally thought, all right, I'm not good at this. I'm not doing this well. And then a week later, my wife gives me the sword of Aragorn, not related to anything that I had heard.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh.
Yeah, and that you had not shared any of that with her.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, huh. So that's how this works. So I'm saying there's a progression. There was a progression of, for me, my experience and it started, my point is it started with pictures. How simple, right? What do you show your infants when it's a picture book.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's an apple. It's a bird.
Yeah. They're not reading apple.
Right.
They're associating, okay, that thing that represents something. And I thought that's really interesting. I was almost 40 at the time. So now at 61, there's been a long progression of things like that. And I still can experience imagery and pictures. I think they're powerful ways that God can communicate. And yes, I still read the scriptures. I've jumped into some other translations because, as you said, I'm pretty well versed, and so I can finish the sentences sometimes that start in almost so many passages. Mm-hmm. So I go to the Message now, and I go to the Amplified for a variety of something different. And if the Word is active and living and speaks, I want to continue to stay, in the stream of it.
Yeah.
But last thing I'll say is, it didn't feel right to me that judgment, accusation, shame, that they all can have a voice in my life, and the Trinity doesn't. So reconciling some of that was, in some ways was an invitation to like, okay, how do I turn down the volume here? And how do I turn up the volume here? And so that progression, the same simplicity of how do you see me? How do you feel about me? Those turn into more questions. Jesus, what should I do here? What is this about? Mm-hmm. So I think if you want to be in conversation with God, bring a handful of questions and see what happens.
Yeah,
would be I think a great place to start. What is this connected to? Why do they think they can do this to me?
Yeah.
Because if it's flesh and blood, it's really not your enemy. It's the enemy working through somebody's flesh and blood to bring and reinforce accusations and guilt and shame. So that's a whole other bigger conversation about how things work and the way things work, which we're actually going to get into. We talked about in some of our planning in season 5.
Beginning of season 5, we're going to go through the map. So We'll
Yep.
get into that at the beginning of season 5. But
Yep.
for those of you that have been walking with us for a little while, you know what that means. But it's the map of where we are and the larger story, and your heart being in the middle. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting to go through.
So I've put my heart, my mind, body, and soul in places that are also training in these ways.
Yeah.
I've got some teachers that I've listened to and followed on YouTube. I've got friends, and we've read books together on God speaking. I've pursued it, and I think that's what has, continued to elevate my ability to hear from God, to practice discernment. I remember, last thing I'll say about that, I remember there was a time, this is a good, 10 years in and 10 years ago, somewhere in there, that whole pray without ceasing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that's crazy.
Yeah. That seems unrealistic.
But not so much.
Not if you redefine what praying is.
Yeah. Being susceptible, being able,
reinterpret.
being willing. I think there are, early on, I found that I kind of had to have an appointment with God for him to speak. But as I matured,
Makes a lot of sense,
as I matured in
for
that,
your story, yeah.
then it was, no, he can get my attention, and I can ask him anything, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Music, worship, music, soundtracks, music is a place that enables me. Solitude, quiet, those are places. But I can move. I was at the home run derby.
Yeah.
That came to town, Major League Baseball, in our Durham Bulls ballpark.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago. It's Hannah's birthday. We're all together. Yeah, man, I'm praying in the middle of dingers and the production of all that. My wife, I am in a posture of God, I want this to go well. Give me any questions, anything. Bring to my mind anything that I can do to engage with my adult children,
right,
and with my wife. Making memories, man. Let's make them matter, make them count. And to think that the enemy's not somewhere in that stadium, seats in front, seats behind, it'd be silly.
Foul balls to the face. Yeah.
In a spiritual sense, we were behind the net, but I hear what you're saying.
In the spiritual sense,
yeah.
Yes.
All it takes, man, is one moment, and whether they're 4, 14, 24, 5, 6, man, it can go foul.
Yeah.
In a moment. So, I think, as we wrap it, and I'm glad you brought up next season, the map. Do you want to talk about any of the time frame on some things? I know we're going to feature the most viewed, most listened to podcast. We're going to do a rerun.
Let's take another swing at some of the topics, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like we're taking a little bit of a break, about a month off, but we've got we're going to show one of my favorite interviews is with Bob the editor. Love to say that, Bob the builder.
Yeah,
Bob the editor,
such a good dude.
A couple years ago, we sat down in an interview situation regarding the release of King Me. And I love it. Just watched it again with Andy. And so we're going to offer that as a podcast.
I heard it from the other room, man. And actually earlier in this episode, when you were talking about being heard and seen really well, I thought you were going to mention Bob.
Yeah, I could.
Honestly. Yeah.
And he would be a great one in that process of, working in the writing process. So that's coming. And the best of, we're doing one of the series that's the best of from 2024 and 5, and then a couple other. I think Andy's got another maybe one off that he's.
Yeah, we're entering into a season of events and travels and conferences and all of that. So we're gonna record a few more, and then have we got to have a break from the recording studio and give Andy a chance to do something else with his life for a couple of weeks.
That's right. But,
so
hey, thank you for another season. Season 4, it's a wrap. It's good one to end on. And our prayer is, that you find, or God will provide in that intersection of somebody who can listen well. And and I wish all counselors did.
Well, some of them suck at it.
Some of them are. So we may keep that one in the show notes. But you may have to knock on a few doors before you find one that. And on our website, we've got some counselors, depending on where you live, that we feel like are very helpful, great listeners.
Yeah, maybe we can put those in the notes.
Yeah,
Andy.
And if you feel like you've tried a few of those things, you've asked your church maybe, but you need somebody to listen. I'll go back to the original Top Gun, where Viper says, "Hey, if when you get there they don't give you a reel, give me a call. We'll ride with you." So if you need some encouragement, you need some help, you need somebody to listen to, it's very important that your story gets the kind of attention that it deserves. And so if we can help broker that, or we can connect, there's one more thing Andy can put up there. There's a circle of men, particularly, that are meeting Wednesday and Thursday mornings through the fall. We're going through Heart of a Warrior. 100 guys each morning. But man, there's a seat for you if you want to join that, as we are out probably, but by that time when this airs, we'll be out a couple miles offshore. If you want to swim for it, we will slow the boat down and make room for you to join us in community and in some brotherhood and in some smaller circles of 5 and 6 men. So just some ways for you to connect. And I think that would be really, really helpful.
One of the most courageous things that I've seen men do is ask for help.
Yeah.
So
the boy, the mole, fox, and the horse, great story of all of that. So, all right. So we'll see you next season, not just next time, but we'll see you next season on the Exploring More podcast. Blessings.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.